Itch it up, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you gonna dig this.
Happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday. This is a special edition of Sucker Punch with yours truly, Maestro, a.k.a. Maestro, Amilcar. And I'm here with my main man, Mr. Joe Habib. And listen, we're just going to get started hot, fresh, right off the grill on this Saturday morning. I don't know if you're having your flapjacks or your hash browns. Maybe you're keeping it, New Year's resolution-y, and you're just going with a nice little fruit salad and some oatmeal. But there is plenty of food for thought, and we're going to start right off with the news right here, and we're going to get right into it because a lot of information has come out in the last 48 hours or so. I want to just play really quickly here what Jake Paul had to say. Here we go.
Oh, Canelo, you puta.
And this fucking YouTuber. I just fight real fighters.
Time to expose them. So we had a signed contract to fight. Here you can see Canelo's signature and my signature to the right. Claiming he's not fighting YouTubers. Bullshit. Look at the poster. We were announcing Tuesday, February 11th. Claiming he fights real fighters, but he's fighting Crawford, a 135-pound fighter, and running from a real fighter like David Benavidez, you bitch. The truth is you can be bought. You're a money-hungry squirrel chasing your next nut. The truth is these sports-washing shady characters are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to stop our fight from happening because they couldn't fathom the fact that they can't create a bigger fight than me and you. Al Heyman has made you hundreds of millions of dollars and you turned your back on him for this check. Disloyal. And you were begging to do this fight on pay-per-view. But I have loyalty. Loyalty to Netflix, doing the biggest numbers. And you call me a YouTuber, but you've never had a boxing match as big as mine. Remember you told my team that your daughter came home and asked if you were fighting Jake Paul? She was all excited. You said that was the first time your daughter's ever asked you about a fight. And you're screwing over all your Mexican fans by doing your fights in Saudi. It just shows what type of person you are. And I promise you one thing, Canelo. Any fight that you do this year, mine will be bigger. So go fuck off to your boss, you Ring Magazine employee, you pink and orange bitch. And oh, fix that herpes on your lip, you dirty puta.
There you go. So that was Jake Paul, Joe. We also have what Canelo had to say. The great Saul Canelo Alvarez. He had a lot to say on this too. It's only fair that we go to the great Gran Campeón Mexicano to hear what he had to say. So let's give him equal time. We're all about fairness here, Joe. Equal time, right? We're not doing the fact checking while people are in the middle of their thing. We're going to give it equal time. And here's Saul Canelo Alvarez and what he had to say about it. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Let's go.
Hey guys, don't pay attention in anything. In this fucking YouTuber. I just fight real fighters. Don't fucking around with Canelo. Come on, let's go.
Well, that was it. Joe. So this is the news, right? And actually, why don't you review the timeline of events? I've spoken enough. Go for it.
I mean, Jake Paul really kind of looks a little bit desperate here, right? Because if you're this superstar, then why are you chasing Canelo, right? If you're the A side, then why are you chasing Canelo? That's number one. Number two, sports washing. You fought Tommy Fury in Saudi Arabia yourself as well. So was that sports washing when you were over there? And this whole thing about a boss. Listen, all right, you don't have the deal directly with the broadcaster. You're dealing with a promotional company, right? So again, the broadcaster is the one that the promoter that pays the rights fee for the fight. Okay, so they're the ones really that the money comes from. They're cutting the checks, or at least facilitating the money so the checks can be cut, right? So everyone has a boss or per se a partner. No one can just do everything themselves, right? Just like you were going to be doing you had to be working with Netflix for this proposed fight with Canelo. So Netflix was basically your partner here, and in some respects, I would say the boss, because they're the ones that are putting up the money. They're paying the rights fee for the fight. Okay, so enough with this boss bullshit. All right, no one writes themselves a check and pays themselves with a check, unless you're even Elon Musk gets money from the government. Okay, so no one just basically writes their own checks and pays themselves. Very rarely do you have situations like that. So you always have to work with someone, deal with the partner. Okay, so it is what it is. Now, this whole thing, oh, we signed a contract. Okay, well, if that was a binding agreement, then why don't you sue Canelo? To me, it was probably a bout agreement. It was probably a preliminary document before the actual contracts would have been signed. So again, let's not act like you signed a binding agreement with Canelo, because if you did, your lawyers would have been all over it by now. And some people are even saying he forged the signature. I'm not going to go that far, but you didn't have a binding agreement with Canelo. All right, I know your legal team is better than that. They're not gonna allow that to slide. Right now, what Turki Alalshikh did was kind of cold, right? And I don't know. I think it damages him a tad bit in terms of credibility. I don't want to go too deep on Turki Alalshikh here, but if you're openly admitting that you were facilitating the rumors and you were giving false information to Mike Coppinger and other reporters, or I think he was just dealing directly with Mike Coppinger. So if you're giving fake information from Mike Coppinger, having him put that out there, now I could argue that he's just using up advertisement space by doing that, right? So by putting Canelo and Jake Paul out there, all you're doing is just kind of creating story, putting Canelo out there in the headlines, and just by getting Canelo that attention, and if you know you're going to be working with Canelo, that's going to help you promote Canelo, right? So just by putting Canelo's name out there and attaching it to Jake Paul, you got some free advertisements, some free press. You were able to keep Canelo's name in the news cycle for a long period of time, and now you can transition that attention to this next fight that you're going to have with whoever you fight in May, and obviously it seems like that Terrence Crawford fight's going to happen in September, barring any unforeseen accident, incident, or injury. So again, you could argue that it was kind of not an honest, honorable thing that Turki Alalshikh did, but you could also argue that it was a smart thing by putting Canelo out there and keeping his name in the news cycle and using that advertisement and attention to kind of bolster Canelo up and just use that to promote Canelo's next fight that you're going to be hosting in Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia.
Well, why don't we go to Turki Alalshikh for a second, Joe? Because he was on the ESPN channel, YouTube channel, giving an exclusive interview to Mike Coppinger. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Let's go.
His success in what he's doing, and I think he will not have difficult time to find someone to fight against.
But Canelo Alvarez, he's going forward with Riyadh season. Next 4 fights at least.
Yeah. I am not the guy who come in their way. They come to my way. Right?
Yeah.
I finished the deal from 2 months with Canelo. They start to talk in the last 2 weeks. It is my right to defend my vision and my contract.
All right. Well, congratulations on getting it done. And thank you so much for the time. And we look forward to the big February 22nd card.
Wait.
So this part here that's coming up is quite important, Joe. But what's interesting to me here is he's essentially saying, look, Jake Paul was trying to negotiate with Canelo the last 2 weeks. I've been trying to negotiate with Canelo for the last 2
months.
There you go. All right. So here we go. He's going to continue here.
For great ideas and great things in the next couple months in America, inshallah. I want to ask you about something.
Okay.
What do you think if there is event fight in Alcatraz jail one day?
I would love that. I used to live in San Francisco. I've been to the Alcatraz Museum.
This guy is smart, man. He's using these media people just like they do in politics, right? These politicians use these media people as PR people, as surrogates, basically, right? And this guy's been able to really put a lot of people under his thumb in such a short period of time. Now, whether or not that's good or bad, I mean, these guys are kind of falling in line with Turki Alalshikh. No one's going to really write anything bad about the guy because, again, they want to get credentialed to these mega events, and they love being flown over to Saudi Arabia and wined and dined over there, right? So again, this guy's he's got the Ring magazine. He's got Mike Coppinger now in his pocket. He's got a lot of these journalists kind of, cowtailing to him, if you will, in my opinion. So this guy's got some control over the sport right now. He really does.
So there he went on and basically started to propose different venues and places for fights: Alcatraz prison, the Roman Colosseum, an aircraft carrier, various things. And Mike Coppinger was on board for all of it. But then we get to this part here.
Before, I am sorry to do not tell you the truth. And you know now what's the reason. Because I plan to make this all success. I never give you wrong information, but I don't give you the right information the last 48 hours. I see you go in different direction and I don't stop you for the reason until I finish. But you are great man, success man, and have a great future.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. And thank you for everything you're doing for boxing. We look forward to it.
Now the people can understand what happened yesterday. You are right in every word you write. I finish it in the last 5 minutes.
You save it.
I save it, but what you are posting is right and it's happened, but I change it in the last 5 minutes. Me and Canelo, not by myself. Me and Canelo.
Well, thank you for saving everybody from a Jake Paul fight that the boxing fans did not want to see, as we saw the reaction.
Come on, Coppinger. If that fight was signed, you would have been behind it. You would have wrote 19 stories about it. You would have hyped it up. You would have been excited about it. Stop pretending. So technically, what I'm taking away from that is he was talking to Turki Alalshikh about Canelo, and obviously he said that he had the 4-fight deal. And then when Mike Coppinger was putting all that information out there, Turki Alalshikh could have easily jumped in and said, "Hey, no, that fight's
about the Jake Paul fight too."
Well, let me just finish it. I'm getting to all that right now. I know you're getting excited. Let me unpack it. Let me fully unpack the present. Let me rip the wrapping paper off it. So he could have easily jumped in and told Mike Coppinger, "Hey, that fight with Canelo's not happening," but he let him keep going with it. Because again, let's keep Canelo's name in the news cycle. This is getting a lot of traction. All you got to do is look at the Google searches and the Twitter searches. Jake Paul, Canelo Alvarez was out there, right? It was getting a lot of traction, right? And Turki Alalshikh saw that, so he said, "You know what? Let it keep going. This is free advertising. Let's just take all this in. That's great." And then at the last minute, he did kind of change things up, but I think he knew all along that he could convince Canelo. Like Canelo, if he really wanted to do this fight with Jake Paul, he would have done it. But the way Turki Alalshikh described it was that he reluctantly agreed to it because there was so much money on the table, and he even said that the Jake Paul fight was going to be he was going to get more for the Jake Paul fight than the fight that Turki Alalshikh is going to give him in May, which is understandable because if it's going to be a tune-up, you don't expect to get the same amount for a Jake Paul fight, big name like that you would get for a tune-up fight. But I do not think Canelo Alvarez is going to get the same amount of money fighting Jake Paul that he's going to get fighting Terence Crawford. I could be wrong there, but I don't think so. I think the Terence Crawford fight is a bigger fight for Canelo than the Jake Paul fight would be. And I guess Turki Alalshikh was saying that if the Canelo Jake Paul fight did go through, it would take some of the luster off the fight with Crawford. I'm not so sure if I agree with that. And then some people can say, well, isn't Turki Alalshikh being hypocritical here? Didn't Tyson Fury fight Francis Ngannou? Yeah, but you could at least say Francis Ngannou was a quote unquote real fighter, if you will. He held a world title in another combat sport, and Jake Paul still, you can argue, hasn't really stepped it up, and some people will still call him a YouTuber, a YouTube boxer, whatever. So I guess there is a slight bit of hypocrisy there, but I think what Turki Alalshikh was alluding to when he was talking to Mike Coppinger was, I knew that the information you were putting out there was wrong. I could have corrected you, but I let you go with it because the news was getting a lot of traction, and I liked having Canelo's name in the news cycle. I liked all the free promotion I was getting, and in 5 minutes left, whatever it was, he knew he was going to step in. Now, I guess the 4-fight deal was supposed to start after May, so the 4-fight deal, it seemed would have, if that May fight with Paul went through, would have started in September. But now they're just going to start that 4-fight deal in May instead of September. And there's a couple names being floated out there. One name that was floated out there before but seems to have been taken off is William Skull. But we'll get into this. I think William Skull is actually going to be the guy because he's got the IBF title. And I think they could market it as Canelo going for undisputed for the second time, being a 2-time undisputed champion at super middleweight. And I think that only adds to the Crawford fight in September, if Crawford will have a chance to become a 3-time undisputed world champion. I believe, I know other people are saying that, who was the guy that beat Jaime Munguia? Soras is his name?
Bruno Serras, yeah.
Soras. And then they keep throwing Jamal Charlo's name in there. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell of Canelo fighting Jamal Charlo. I don't think that's
is Jamal Charlo is afraid of the mic though, Joe? As his
brother. That's Jamel. That's Jamel. Oh, but is he? Is he afraid? Is he afraid of the Maestro mic like Jamel was? I don't know, man. That remains to be seen. But I think the fight that makes the most sense is with William Skull for the IBF title, right? Another undisputed fight. That way you can build this fight as Crawford shooting for 3-time undisputed in 3 divisions. I mean, that just makes that fight bigger. It makes it a legacy fight for Crawford. And it also gives Canelo another accomplishment. That he's not only the only fighter to become undisputed in the 4-belt era at super middleweight, but he could say he did it twice, right? So again, that just adds to the event on both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, basically he said that he knew what was being reported was not accurate, and that he waited until the last 5 minutes to essentially refute what Coppinger was tweeting out or posting or writing. And he essentially apologized to Mike Coppinger at the end for doing that, and then told Mike Coppinger how great he is and how much of a future he has. I think that there was a little bit of concern there that he might have damaged Mike Coppinger's professional reputation a little bit, which is why he said what he said at the end there. Or am I reading too much into
Well,
that?
a lot of people, not a lot, but there's some people on Twitter that were like, well, why did Turkey give Mike Coppinger the wrong information? He didn't really give Mike Coppinger the wrong information. Turki Alalshikh was not involved at all with that Jake Paul Canelo fight. He was not involved at all. So he really didn't. He didn't confirm or deny that fight. What he did do was he didn't say that fight was not going to happen, but he made a decision at the very end. Like, I don't know if it was exactly 5 minutes before, but that fight was almost done. It was the contracts, like, it seemed like they were close to being signed, and that's when he jumped in and talked to Canelo and convinced him to not take that fight. So people are framing this like Turki Alalshikh was complicit in this by lying to people, by saying that Jake Paul was going to be fighting Canelo Alvarez. It doesn't seem that to be that way. That doesn't seem to be the case, in my opinion. The only thing Turki Alalshikh is guilty of is stopping the fight at the last minute and letting people know that he was going to stop the fight at the last minute. And now he could have tried to stop the fight at the last minute in the 13th hour, and he could have failed, but he was successful, right? So he probably had a way of convincing Canelo that, hey, you know what, this really isn't a legacy fight for you. This isn't a real fight. This is a fight that you should take. This is basically an exhibition, and you're an active fighter, still a world champion. Why are you doing exhibitions? In other words, that's kind of the way and again, I'm just paraphrasing there, but I think that's the way it was presented to Canelo from Turki Alalshikh's perspective. Like, this is basically an exhibition fight. Why fight an exhibition now while you're a world champion? It could damage your legacy right now, right? And there have been people already complaining and being upset with Canelo's list of opponents as of late, and I'm sure people would have jumped all over this one too. There would have been enough people that would have complained about this one, and I don't think the boxing public, maybe even the boxing media would have been 100% kind to Canelo with this. But I don't know. I kind of think that this fight could have crossed over. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it could have crossed over. And it could have done.
I think it definitely
would have done great numbers. And I said yesterday, I wouldn't have mind seeing Canelo Alvarez knock out Jake Paul. No shade to Jake Paul, but I just would like to see, Canelo Alvarez knock out Jake Paul, man. I would have liked to see
I think it definitely would have been a big event. I think it would have done huge numbers, especially if it was on Netflix, like his, if you can call it a fight, with Mike Tyson was. I do though have a question though. I know he's fought a lot of MMA guys, right? But for a guy whose record is 11-1, and he with names like Tommy Fury, Andre August, and Ryan Borland on his record, is he still not a professional boxer? Is he still just a YouTuber? I mean, Ryan Borland was 17-2 when he fought him. Andre August was 10-1-1. Tommy Fury was 8-0. I mean, unless you're going to make an argument that none of those guys are real professional boxers, I don't understand how you can say at this point that Jake Paul is not a professional boxer.
In 11 fights, how many real boxers would you say are actually on his record?
If you take off the Mike Tyson, right? Because so that it's really 10-1 if you look at it that. But three guys.
Well,
I mean, I know people with 1 or 2 or 3 professional fights that work as coaches in gyms and they call themselves former pros.
Well, let's take a look at this.
How many fights do you need to have before you're considered a pro fighter? This is my question.
Well, let's unpack this. I mean, technically he's a pro fighter, but he's not a world-class pro fighter.
That's because for sure.
So here's the thing. You just fought Mike Tyson in what, an 8-round fight, 2-minute rounds. And the fight was actually sanctioned as a real fight and went on your record. And it went on Mike Tyson's record.
Which it shouldn't have.
I mean, so we're supposed to take that like, is that supposed to be taken seriously? Like that should have been an exhibition. So why are you still fighting exhibition level fights as an 11? If you want to, again, he can do whatever he wants. He's still going to be he's making great money doing what he's doing. But people are going to frame it for what it is, not how you want them to frame it. Like people are still going to say, when you're still doing events like that while being an active fighter, then people are still going to look at you and call you a YouTuber. Right. And that's what I kind of think that was the angle Turki Alalshikh took with Canelo. Is like, Canelo, you're a world-class fighter. You're still in the pound for pound list. You're a unified world champion. And this is not a fight at this stage of your career that you should be taking. This is an exhibition type fight. You're still active as a world champion. You shouldn't be doing exhibitions now. You should be doing these types of fights when you retire. And that was Canelo's original plan. Like when he retired, he would maybe consider doing these types of fights, a couple of these types of fights, you know? But at this point in time, Turki Alalshikh just said this is not the right time. Now, do I agree with Turki Alalshikh that this would have hurt future fights down the road for Canelo? That would have remained to be seen. I may respectfully disagree with Turki Alalshikh on that one, but I don't know.
So we've heard from Turki Alalshikh, Mike Coppinger, Jake Paul, and Canelo. You know, you're the UK's adopted son, Joe. So I would, I wouldn't want to end the show without going over to a little bit of what the UK is saying about this. And one of your favorite guys out in the UK is, of course, Adam, right? From I think his name is Adam, right?
Adam Catterall, I think.
Adam Catterall, yeah. From Talk Sport. Let's hear what he has to say about this. Let's go.
This genius.
Here we go.
Canelo Alvarez, one of the biggest stars in the world of boxing, had agreed terms to fight Terence Crawford, another massive profile fighter, obviously undisputed champion.
They're not the same weight, though.
They're not the same weight, right? Now, obviously, I've got my thoughts on this, but they are two high-profile lads, and they were going to meet each other in September on a Riyadh season funded card. They were going to do it in Las Vegas. Then Tuesday, I get a message from an industry bigwig saying, "Guess what's going to be the biggest fight in May?" So I'm having a few guesses, couldn't get it, and he went, "You're way off." And then he told me what the fight was, and I was disgusted with it. Absolutely disgusted. Then the news starts to filter around other news outlets that Canelo Alvarez was going to be fighting Jake Paul. You're rolling your eyes. Now, for people that hadn't been paying attention to this, it was a very, very real thing. They were quite a long way down the line of signing that fight off for Canelo to take on Jake Paul, Cinco de Mayo weekend, someplace in America. All right? Now, then what we find out is that Turki Alalshikh, the guy that runs everything over in Saudi Arabia, has pulled the plug on the Canelo versus Terence Crawford fight. My opinion, don't know this for a fact, but my opinion was, well, hang on a minute, if you're going to go off to the circus and have a dance around with this lot...
I'm thinking the same thing. What's the integrity of the sport?
How am I going to be able to sell my proper fight?
Exactly.
Because people aren't going to be paying attention. You know what I mean? You're diluting the proper fight that I'm trying to build in September, so you pull the plug on it. Then,
but you say that.
Now, my take on the whole thing is,
because remember the Anthony Joshua Ngannou fight, and the Ngannou and Fury fight, So what's the difference?
No, there is no difference, and this has been my argument with this, right?
There is a difference with that.
Go for it, Joe. Whenever you want to interject, just pop up your head. Just pop up your head and let me know you want to interject. Go for it.
My fault. Yeah. I mean, there is a difference with that. At least you can argue Ngannou was a world champion in another combat sport. Like Jake Paul is not a world champion. He didn't have as many combat sport contests as Francis Ngannou. I understand the angle. It's similar, but it's not identical. I don't want to defend those fights because I wasn't a big fan of either one of those fights. But it's not apples to apples, in my opinion. Sorry about that.
No, that's cool. Anytime you want to, just boom, and I'll bring you right in. And I agree with every word you just said. Let's continue.
We've now found ourselves in a situation where Turki Alalshikh has announced last night that he has signed a 4-fight deal with Canelo Alvarez. So that means that he's going to fight Riyadh season in May. He's going to do this Terence Crawford fight September, and then he's going to do 2 more in 2026 as part of this Riyadh season. Fantastic. And the reason why it's fantastic news is because it shuts down the Jake Paul fight. Boxing right now is in a phenomenal place, a really good place. We've just been speaking to Simon, haven't we? And he's been giving us the calendar for the next...
Says the UFC guy.
Man. 2 or 3 months? All the fights that are coming up. Beterbiev, Bivol, Dubois, Parker.
Unbelievable.
We're all giddy for all these fights.
Yep.
Isn't it great, Joe, when a UFC guy gives you acknowledgement, when the UFC guy tells you how great boxing is? I mean, he's a UFC guy. I've seen him so many times talk about how great the UFC is, especially vis-a-vis boxing. So, now he's giving boxing praise, and he's putting on the hat of the boxing expert,
I mean, this guy started following boxing like probably 2 weeks ago, man, and he acts like he's like a historian, man. I mean, he's not an authority on the sport of boxing, in my opinion. He can have his opinion, but I can have my opinion on his opinion, as I always like to say.
Exactly. A little bit more here.
Imagine if at the end of 2025, after Turki Alalshikh puts all these brilliant fights on, undisputed fights, top contenders fighting each other, world championship fights, the best guys fighting the best guys. Imagine if all that plays out, and it's going to play out in 2025. Imagine if me and you get to December and we're talking about what was the most watched boxing event this year. And I tell you that it was Canelo versus Jake Paul. That would be a disaster, because it completely dilutes what Turki Alalshikh's trying to do and the vision for boxing of where he's trying to put.
What was the biggest fight of all time, Joe? Because if memory serves me well, wasn't it Mayweather-McGregor? Did that kill boxing?
Yeah, this I don't know, this hyperbolic behavior here, these hyperbolic declarations here, like, again, people always love to cry that the sky is falling every time something like this happens. Like, boxing has gone through exhibitions before. It's gone through these types of fights before. And the quickest way to erase the memory of these fights is just put on a fight like Crawford versus Canelo, right? Just put on a fight like Beterbiev versus Bivol. Those fights will always outshine these fights with diehards. Fury Usyk. So again, like, these fights do not define what the sport is. They don't define the sport. And there's such a fear that, oh, well, what if one of these novelty fights, these quote unquote circus fights, ends up doing more than a quote unquote real super fight? Like, why are boxing fans so threatened by something that goes against the grain, something that goes against the norm? It was just like when MMA, UFC first started getting popular, all the boxing fans became so afraid and paranoid. Like, boxing's been around for so long, and there's nothing like a boxing super fight. Nothing can compare to it. So
June 26, 1976, the Nippon Budokan in Japan. What do you think took place that night, Joe? Most people won't guess this. I'll just say it. Muhammad Ali, versus Antonio Inoki. Did that kill boxing?
Oh,
did that kill boxing? Not. All right, let's continue a little bit here.
I'm so tired of this hyperbolic talk.
Here we go.
Yeah. Push this game. He's trying to save boxing. Yeah. He's trying to get people's attention back to the top fights.
And what I would say as well, the Ngannou fights, they were to put the Riyadh season on the map, basically.
Agreed.
Because it was a launch kind of thing. So I get that's a different tactic. But now it's gone further. I don't think you need to do that anymore.
We're not there now.
No,
we're doing Butterbeer Bivol. We're doing Fury versus Usyk.
Proper fights.
We're doing the proper ding-dongs. That's what we're proper doing.
You're right.
So
proper ding-dongs, Joe.
What a fucking goofy this guy is. This guy is a goofy.
To me.
He's a goofy, this guy. Isn't he a goofy?
Yeah. It's very interesting, though, to me, Joe, because we have this phenomenon in boxing right now where a lot of the media, a lot of the reporting is being done by MMA guys, whether it's Adam Catterall over in the UK or on this side, my man from Montreal, Ariel Helwani. He's an MMA guy. And now he's one of the biggest boxing pundits out there. I mean, DAZN's giving him his own boxing show, right? Which he does with Ade and like Ale Oladipo, obviously. And
Luke Thomas was doing work at one point with Showtime with Brian Campbell. They were doing fights too.
Right.
He's an MMA guy. So again, you see all these MMA guys, commentators crossing over. So again, if boxing is just in such dire straits, then why do we have these crossover fights? Why do we have these MMA commentators coming over to boxing? Because again, in my opinion, I still think there's more money in the sport of boxing.
There's way more money in the sport of boxing. I only know of one boxing commentator, analyst that covers the UFC, and boy, does he ever cover the UFC. I mean, this guy's running so much interference and caping for the UFC. And I'm obviously talking about Teddy Atlas.
Yeah, but he has such a minuscule role. Like
exactly.
They'll have him come in with and give little snippets, but he's not like actually being an analyst.
He's not
being a real commentator. Like Ariel Helwani's covered full events on DAZN for boxing.
No, multiple events. He was doing them for Showtime too.
And I'll be honest, a lot of people probably aren't going to like this. I don't think that Ariel Helwani actually does a bad job.
No, he doesn't do a bad job.
I don't think he does a bad job. A lot of people, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an MMA. I don't think he does a bad job. I think he's a good commentator.
He stays inside his knowledge base area.
He doesn't overstep. He
doesn't overstep, and he's not too arrogant or opinionated. And honestly, he's not negative about boxing.
Not at all.
The thing with Teddy Atlas is very negative about boxing when he's covering MMA. Ariel Helwani isn't negative about boxing, but here, let's play a little of what he had to say about this.
Shall we get right into it?
Absolutely. I've been seeing the tweets, but you're going to be able to tell me better than anyone else. So go ahead, sir.
Okay, so obviously this centers around Jake Paul, Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, and Turki Alalshikh, but there are other players involved as well. Following the success of Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and what I mean by success, I mean the amount of attention and viewers and business that it generated. The attention was then turned to a fight between Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez sometime in 2025. And so as I reported yesterday, in the midst of all of this, those talks were a very real thing. And they were moving along. It wasn't just a pie in the sky idea. We were kind of going through footage, mainly my guy Spencer, who does a tremendous job on our social media, of all the times Jake Paul had talked about Canelo really since the Tyron Woodley fight, the first one, dating back to the summer of 2021. And there are numerous occasions where he says, in 2-3 years, I'm going to fight Canelo. And there are numerous occasions where Canelo is asked about Jake Paul and he laughs it off. And he says, come on, guys, ask me a serious question. And media would laugh it off, but he stuck to it. And even, the week of the Tyson fight, he was talking about Canelo Alvarez. And so following that fight, that's where they turned their attention. And finally, there appeared to be interest on the side of Canelo. Now, Canelo has made no bones about the fact that he is a businessman. Payday, payday. That's what he always says, right? If you're going to pay me, if you're going to sign a big fat check and give it to me, I'm in. Eddie Hearn mentioned that earlier this week when talking to the media in the UK. Canelo Alvarez has no loyalty whatsoever, and he is very open about this. He just goes where the money is, and that's not a knock.
Time out right there, because I got to pull that up from my man, Mr. Joe Habib. Weren't you on a soapbox about that very point a little while ago? Weren't you making that point on this channel? And by the
I
way,
had to hear these corny people tell me, "Oh, well, what if he wants to stay loyal to Eddie Hearn?" Like they fucking grew up together or something, and they played in the sandbox together. Like they're old schoolmates or some shit. You know, Eddie Reynoso and Chapo Reynoso, the dad, they were with Canelo since he was a young kid. So obviously there's a loyalty there. They've always done right by him, and they've always steered him in the right direction. But like this whole thing with this, what if he wants to stay loyal to DAZN? Again, DAZN couldn't really afford him anymore. You know, they couldn't get him the fights that he needed. They couldn't get him the fights. People want to talk shit about PBC, but PBC were the ones that put up the cash, and they were able to pay Canelo more than DAZN. So all these goofballs, what if he wants to stay loyal to Eddie Hearn, stay loyal to DAZN? Like again, what you guys are a bunch of goofs, bunch of fucking goofs. Now you can. Turki Alalshikh did say, "Oh well, this Jake Paul fight was bigger than the fight we're going to have in May." Yeah, but it's not going to be bigger than the fight in September, right? So look, all you got to do is look ahead, look down the road. Like Canelo is going to make money, right? He's going to make money wherever he goes, right? So that's just the way it is. Like people just got to accept it. Stop having these goofy Twitter battles with your friends, PBC versus DAZN, and trying to insert Canelo into that. You think Canelo gives a fuck about where he fights as long as he's getting treated fairly and he's getting paid the most amount of money? He's always been about good business. And this Turki Alalshikh deal is good business.
100%. Let's bring back Ariel here and finish up with this last part of what he had to say. Let's go.
On him. He's a prize fighter, and he should do that because this game is going to end for him at some time, maybe in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so he needs to get the most amount of money possible. And so this is happening. This is happening. These two guys are talking, the two entities are talking, and they're moving towards a potential showdown in May, Cinco de Mayo weekend. At the same time as all of this, there is great interest from Turki Alalshikh and Riyadh season to put on a Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford fight. So these two conversations are happening somewhat in parallel. One has nothing to do with the other. MVP has nothing to do with Riyadh season. Riyadh season has nothing to do with MVP. But there's a guy in the middle, Canelo Alvarez, who's kind of talking to both entities. Now, my understanding is, as far as MVP is concerned, they didn't really care about the Terence Crawford fight. One fight's happening in May. One fight is scheduled to happen in September. I did get the impression, and this came to light last night, that let's just say the Riyadh season side of things weren't too keen on the guy who they're about to pay a ton of money to fight Terence Crawford in a football stadium in September is going to then go down this sort of, different path against Jake Paul. Because let's be honest to the public, and you saw this when the stories really started to come to a head yesterday, if you're taking a Jake Paul fight when you've got a potential showdown with Crawford, a fight that everyone wants to see against David Benavidez, a potential rematch with Dimitri Bivol down the line, the fans start to view you in a different light, and there's a backlash there. And so the side in September was saying, like, we don't love this. But at the same time, these two things were happening. On Monday, we get a report from The Ring, which, let's be honest, owned by Turki Alalshikh. He doesn't hide this. They made a big announcement. They had a big gala. Everyone knows what it is. When they come out and say Canelo versus Terence Crawford is close to being done, you take that as gospel because, of course, it's essentially coming from him. He owns the outlet, right? It's like back in the day when The Ring was owned by Oscar De La Hoya. When they would report on Golden Boy things, you knew it was pretty much a done deal.
And there you go, Joe. So go ahead.
And that is a conflict of interest when you got someone like Turki Alalshikh who's basically he's not necessarily a promoter, but he's putting on fights. He somewhat acts as a promoter, right? He's has a role similar to Al Heyman. And if you own if you're owning like a boxing media website that puts out news, obviously they can't be objective when they report on your events, right? So there is a conflict of interest there. But do I care? I don't give a fuck as long as I don't care. I don't pay much attention to the boxing media anymore. I just watch the fights and I analyze the fights from my own personal perspective, and that's all. You know.
One thing I do disagree with what Jake said. My first response to it, because I saw it when I woke up in the morning, and you had sent me this over text, and I thought that some of the stuff he said was pretty funny. But I do disagree with some things that Jake Paul said. The principal one being that he's somehow abandoning his Mexican fans by fighting in Saudi. My understanding is that they're going to accommodate the timing of the fight. But here's my other thing. Canelo hasn't really fought in Mexico that much in the last few years. I mean, he did the fight with John Ryder in Guadalajara, in the football stadium there, in the Chivas Stadium. But most of his fights have been in the United States. Now, someone might say, well, he's fighting in occupied Mexico in the United States, right? He's fighting in these parts of the United States that used to be part of Mexico before the United States stole it. I'm talking about Texas principally, and even Nevada. There's a lot
I
of
love when you inject this in here. This is awesome. This is so awesome. I love it. Everyone hates when you do it, but I don't care. Keep doing it.
For those of you who don't know, Mexico used to have a lot more territory. In fact, more than half of Mexican territory was stolen by the United States. Nevada, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, obviously, California. So there are people that believe that it's occupied Mexico. There are still a lot of Mexicans living over there. So I understand he's moving from.
Can I say something else real quick?
Let me just make this last point and then go for it. But I mean, he's fighting in the United States, right? In reality, it's the United States right now. And in reality, a lot of Mexicans can't just freely travel to the United States to go to these fights. So I don't see how he's abandoning Mexico and Mexicans by fighting in Saudi when he's been fighting in Vegas and in these other places. But I think it's occupied Mexico. I'm just saying that. I have friends in Mexico City that also consider all of that occupied Mexico. They learned about it.
There were wars. There were wars around those lands. I mean, they weren't just given up. Freely.
Yeah. I mean, it is. No, they didn't sell it to the United States.
They didn't sell it to the United States. Goofball. They were won in wars.
Yeah, they were won in wars. So it is what it is. But go for it, Joe. You wanted to make.
I was going to say, you have all these people complaining about the whole situation with Greenland and Canada being part of a union.
Yeah.
But we literally took land from Mexico. So what are we doing here? So stop. I'm not saying we're going to go in and just start annexing land. No. But if we want to work out situations where we can have Canada being in a North American union with us, like the EU, what's wrong with that? If we want to buy Greenland, what's wrong with that?
I like the idea of a North American union. I like the idea of no borders and Mexicans being able to freely come to the United States, people from the United States being able to freely go to Canada and Mexico, and obviously people from Canada being freely able to go to Mexico and the United. I personally love that idea. But that's a topic for another show. All I'm saying is I don't understand this argument that he's abandoning Mexico and abandoning Mexicans by fighting in Saudi Arabia. I don't see that. I don't see that personally.
No.
There's
a lot of Mexican people from California. Canelo Alvarez owns property, I believe, in California. I'm not sure if he owns property in Vegas. I know he owns property in California.
Mexicans have literally been living in those states: Nevada, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, and definitely California.
New Mexico. Did you say New Mexico too?
No, New Mexico. Before they were part of the United States, there was Mexicans living there, and the descendants of those people still live there. So. Correct. I mean, I don't see it as abandoning Mexico though to fight in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that makes no sense. That statement.
Isn't Televisión Azteca, TV Azteca still going to show the fight? Aren't they accommodating it to an American time zone?
And then when he fights in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, aren't there going to be a lot of Mexicans there?
Yeah, I agree. So I don't I don't really see it personally. So there you go. Anything else to add on this one, Joe?
Oh, let's just map out the 4 fights.
Yeah, let's talk
I'll
about
do
who
it
the
real
4
quick.
fights might be.
I'll do it real quick.
Mhm.
I think the first fight's going to be William Skull for the undisputed super middleweight championship.
Yep.
Second fight's going to be Crawford. The
Mhm.
third fight is going to be Chris Eubank Jr. in the UK.
Ooh.
And this fourth fight, in my opinion,
El Monstro Benavides.
at that particular time,
If he's still at 175.
well, here's the thing.
If he beats Beterbiev and Bivol.
Well, here's the thing. If Beterbiev beats Bivol, I think David Benavidez goes up to cruiserweight. You know, I already said that. If Bivol wins, I think Benavidez fights him. So I do think that if Bivol beats both Beterbiev and Benavidez, or if Bivol just beats Beterbiev, no, I think he'd need to beat both of them because the timeline wouldn't work. So if he beats both Beterbiev and Benavidez, then Canelo, that would be the fourth fight. But this fourth fight, if Benavidez could be Benavidez, if he ends up being the last man standing when all the smoke is clear.
Here's how I look at it for Benavidez. If I, as a boxing fan, right? If Beterbiev beats Benavidez, right? Fight Beterbiev. Sorry, if Beterbiev beats Bivol, fight Beterbiev, right? If Bivol beats Beterbiev, then I want to see a trilogy of that as a boxing fan.
Yeah.
And I would like to see Benavidez take on the winner of Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith. I think that's a great fight. Benavidez versus the winner of that fight. I like that fight. And then that keeps these guys occupied while Canelo's doing the schedule that you just outlined, right?
And also if there's a trilogy, right? And Beterbiev and Bivol fight a third time, right? I still don't think Benavidez will be the fourth fight. He could be, but at that point in time, you could argue he'd be busting out at the seams at 175 because they're already saying he's having a hard time making 175 and he wants to go up to cruiserweight, right? So at that point in time, Canelo could have an advantage, because he'd have a hard time making 175. So it could kind of even things out a little bit at that point. But not only that, let's not forget about Diego Pacheco. He could be that fourth fight too, because his profile could have gone up at that point in time. He could have some good wins under his belt, right?
We like Diego Pacheco on this channel. We like how he stands on business.
Yeah, we like Pacheco. So I feel pretty confident with the first three are going to be. I know. Well, I can't say I know, but I'm very confident that Skull is going to be the May fight. Crawford will be the September fight. And if
Chris Eubank Jr. at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, that'll be the third. But if Crawford beats Canelo, then they do a rematch. And that could be the third fight. So I can map out the first three. The fourth fight is very difficult.
There you go. I have nothing to add to this, Joe, other than to say I wouldn't have had a problem with Canelo fighting Jake Paul. It would have been it would have been an event. I would have watched it on Netflix. I would have been excited about watching it on Netflix.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm also cool with William Skull for all the belts. Actually, would all the belts be on the line?
Yeah. Canelo got three of them.
What about the IBO title? Who's holding that right now? Who's holding the IBO at 168?
I know, the IBO, the real title.
Maybe he should go after the IBO champion. What do you think? Huh?
We'll worry about that another time. Let's stick with the 4 recognized belts. I know the IBO. I know at Beeb Industries the IBO is the number one title. It actually beats the ring title as well. So, but no one really falls in line with Beeb Industries.
Of course, Olace Iglesias. That's the guy. I've seen him fight. He's very good, but he needs some seasoning.
Until the rest of the sanctioning bodies and the rest of the boxing world get on board with Beeb Industries and recognize the IBO as the one true belt.
Yeah, Iglesias, exactly, nerd. There you go. So yeah, I'm cool with William Skull. I'm okay with Crawford because Crawford really wants this fight, right? And you know what? shout out to my people out there in the UK. I think that Chris Eubank Jr. against Canelo is a monster event for Canelo.
Yeah, and I think Chris Eubank Jr. is going to
And
beat.
for the UK.
Yeah, I think he's going to beat Conor Benn.
I don't think he's going to beat Conor Benn. I think he's going to utterly destroy Conor Benn.
Yeah, he's going to win that fight, in my opinion.
I think that after this fight, very few people are going to want to see Conor Benn fight again or take him seriously at 160, at 154, or at 147.
Well, that's harsh.
So, yeah, it's gonna be rough.
The guy's got a family, man. You can't, you got to start showing a little respect, man.
It's gonna be rough for Conor Benn. I'm just saying.
Start showing him some respect.
So there you have it. Yeah, I guys, do the channel a favor. Do us a favor. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you tune in every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific for Ringside Reporter Live with my man right there, Mr. Joe Habib, right? And our friend Eric Lorta, all right? They have their show 6 p.m. Eastern. Although it is Super Bowl Sunday, so
tomorrow's going to be 12, yeah, for the Super Bowl.
Tomorrow's going to be 12, so you got to let people know tomorrow 12 because it's Super Bowl
12 p.m.
Sunday.
Eastern time, yeah, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
All of the football fans, right? Real football, because this is bigger than the World Cup. It's bigger than the Champions League. It's the real World Championship of the real sport of football. Actually, no, it's not.
Uh-oh.
But that's for another story. Guys, we're going to do part 2 on my channel. Link is in the chat over there. We're going to be talking about Derek Chisora, his big fight tomorrow later today with Otto Wallin. It's the end of an era for Chisora and of maybe even for that era of heavyweight boxing. But we're also going to rank the heavyweights, this current crop of heavyweights. I'm going to ask Joe to give me his heavyweight rankings as we get towards the big card out there in Riyadh, which also has a major heavyweight fight on it between Big Bang Zhang, Chinese speed, Chinese power, Chairman Bang. He bangs everybody. Will he bang Ajit Kabayel? We'll see, because those are two of my favorite heavyweights in the sport. So we'll rank the heavyweight division, and we'll also talk about the Chisora fight with Wallin and whether he can turn back the clock. So link is there in the chat. It's also in the description of this video. So make sure you drop a comment. Let us know where you're commenting from. Joe, Boston, me, the Bronx, New York. You let us know. And last word to you, Joe.
This is going to be interesting these next couple years of boxing, because Turki Alalshikh is letting us know that he's got a lot of surprises for us that lay ahead, and I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
There you go. All right, on that note, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and that would be 5 p.m. UK time. Ringside Reporter Live with my man, Joe Habib, right there. And my other main man, Eric Lorta. See you for part 2. Go over to my channel, and we'll see you in a minute. Take care, everybody. Have a great